Computers work faster, and fire behavior predictive abilities seem to improve as modeling becomes faster, more comprehensive. With this new technology, are we retaining our natural skills to function effectively without these tools? What if we were suddenly pushed back in time to, say, a fire in Alaska in the early 1970s? Could we pull a pencil and a piece of paper and a calculator out of our pocket and use what we know and see and feel to predict the fire's behavior? Could we do it if someone's life depended on it? Rod Norum had a degree in electrical engineering when he drifted out to Montana and met Dick Rothermel at the fire lab in Missoula, Montana. That meeting redirected Rod's career path into forestry, where he finished a master's and doctorate and became a fire behavior officer in 1973. His story in fire behavior begins in Alaska in 1972, before the first nomograms had been developed.
So I went out there and I met Elmer Hurd and Dick McCoy and Jack Ray from the Type 1 team from Anchorage. And they're there and they're getting briefed, and this is a bad one. It's a real troublesome fire up by the pipeline and near the pump station up there near the Yukon crossing, the only bridge across. And this was a political hot potato, as you might guess, because of the pipeline. Mm-hmm. Never been burned across before, so they thought it would survive it, but they weren't at all sure, so boy, the fat was in the fire. And Elmer Hurd was a very congenial fire boss, incident commander, and he greeted me at the door, and he came in and said, "Guy, whatever you can provide, we need your help because we got a bad situation." So we're going to be living on the Yukon River there, and this thing is up on the bluffs up there, and it's in a complex of fuels and the persistent weather's toward the pipeline. And it was in a bad situation. All the different complexes you would expect in the interior, from big white spruce, they look like something from right out here in Montana, to tussock tundra out on the flats of black spruce, feather moss in between, and some hardwoods mixed in. And I mapped the fuels first thing, and it was a steady state situation. And so we began to really go after it, and using like lower 48 tactics. I mean, cutting lines through big timber and digging down to dirt, they get this sucker stopped. And it was going well for a few days, and the model working well and everything. And so we began to plan this monster tactical backfire from the Big Salt River. And using what I could from what I'd learned about moisture content changes and everything, and measurements on site, and now is a dirty fingernail approach. Anyway, we got it together as fast as we could and got every resource in the state we could get that would light fire. 2 great shot crews, and a fixed wing and a helicopter, the thermite grenades and a fusee launcher, and crews all up that thing for 26 miles and set her off. So, but anyway, we won it, and sure enough, within an hour of George Atlas' predicted time, poof, wind stopped, And we had a wreck behind us, but we had stopped it at the Big Salt River. So once again, portions of the fire spread model and the fire behavior technology, plus a lot of practical experience in the hands of both Dick and me in looking at a lot of fire, prescribed fires and experimental fires and wildfires, all combined to make it work pretty good. Had the nomograms belt wither kit, and essentially that's it. First is plotting it, is graphing it, expected against observed. And for a long time I was very discouraged because it was just crap. And but yet then I began to hit it where it began to fit. Well, I went out and I looked at those fuels, and it looked like busted up leaves to me, so I tried Fuel Model 9 and was astounded. It didn't look anything like Fuel Model 9, but when you get it down to the fuel physics, forget the models or the names of it or anything. You begin to look at the physics of the fuel, the surface to volume ratio and packing ratio and bulk density and all those things. Forget where it came from and look at those characteristics and begin to match them up. Now it begins to make a lot more sense. So you forget names and begin to look at that as it fits the fire spread theory, and try to put that in the right category. So it's one more input you've got over here, one more variable you can control. And sure enough, it began to work. For most of the fuels, you had 1 hour, 2 hour, 10 hour, 100-hour time class fuels. And, you have the calculational means. They weren't great, but, you had charts and tables you could look up for temperature, humidity, and get an estimate of the moisture content. Well, first you have to have a real grasp of the technology. That's fundamental. And it helps to have great intuition, and somehow I managed to have that. That, looking at all prescribed fires and all different things, you get an intuition for, without any more information. If you see a new fuel complex and you see a fire start, at least within certain bounds what that fire is going to look like. It's not if it's going to be a crown fire, fast spreading surface fire, short flame. You have an intuition of how that fire is going to look right from the beginning. And that is always in the back of your mind. Every time I would make a fire spread or flame length calculation, before I ever handed it over to the overhead team, I'd sit and look at it and say, does this make practical sense to me? Does it look like it's going to really do that? And if it didn't, I'd go back and redo some things and check again. And but if it looked good to me, I'd hand it to him and I said, I'm pretty sure this is what it's going to do. And I was rarely wrong. No question, because, there's a lot in our senses that gets synthesized in our mind that you can't write down, that you see, you feel, you smell, you look at the sky, you feel the breeze, and all this, and this integrates a lot of stuff in your mind. So the next time you feel that or something close to that, it relates back to that. Your memory is way better than you think it is. But the tools are incidental, whether it's a computer or a Frank Albini nomograph, the tools are incidental. It's how you relate the two and make them work that counts most of all, because some judgment gets involved all along the way, and I'm afraid in some of the swift calculation processes and computers we got, that little judgment at each step maybe gets lost. And I know that we may continue to make corrections in our course through those calculations again and again based on what I see there today on this fire, on this site, under these conditions. This looks right, it calculates this, but I'm thinking maybe it ought to be adjusted a little bit, and you automatically do that where the computer won't.
To become a master fire behavior analyst, Rod Norum recognized the importance of coupling both fire behavior computer modeling and his intuition to predict fire behavior. Just as one can improve their ability to use a computer to predict fire behavior, firefighters can also improve their ability to better intuit fire behavior situations. In his book, Intuition at Work, Why Developing Your Gut Instincts Will Make You Better at What You Do, Gary Klein writes that intuition is not something magical, but rather is the natural outgrowth of experience and preparation. Klein says that for one to become really good at using intuition as a decision-making tool, one must go through a program of mental conditioning that will improve your pattern repertoire. Purchase a copy of Klein's book and work through the chapters that will show you how to build, apply, and safeguard your intuitive skills, and in the process, become more adept at fire behavior forecasting. Fire behavior forecasting.